I grew up on a small farm in the Midwest. I had white privilege and didn't even know it. I could go any place by myself and not be afraid of someone hurting me because of the color of my skin. I didn't worry about being able to get into the doctor's office or having enough food to eat or of being able to move into the place I wanted to because of the color of my skin. I always knew racism was wrong. I recognized the arrogant expression on Officer Chauvin's face as he knelt on George Floyd's neck. I didn't know what it meant growing up, but I do now. It means that Officer Chauvin thought he had the power over George Floyd and that regardless of what happened, he would not be held accountable for his actions. That arrogant look is the look of racism, sexism, heterosexism, ageism, and every other kind of bigotry. Sitting back and doing nothing is not an option for me.
I am outraged by the violent and hateful events that have taken place over the past 2 weeks. How many more people of color will be murdered at the brutal hands of the police, begging for their lives, begging to breathe? I am outraged and horrified that the people who are peacefully protesting this brutality are being met with tear gas, rubber bullets, flash grenades, physically beaten and intimidated by police and National Guard troops. I am outraged and deeply concerned that journalists are being arrested. I am outraged and sickened by the monster in the White House, encouraging and inciting violence against these protesters who are demanding an end to police brutality, systemic racism, and injustice. I am hopeful that change will come from the masses of protesters rising up, demanding it.
I will not be dominated. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition our government for a redress of grievances. As a gay man, I have overcome self-loathing and self-destructive behavior. I have experienced discrimination and fear of physical violence. I pledge solidarity to all people fighting for justice and equality. I will not be dominated. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I will not be dominated. I am asking all of you to call the Democratic leadership and ask them to hold a press conference to ask for calm, to demand the end of the violent and unlawful actions of this occupant of the White House.
Many of you may remember the beautiful event that we held last September, the Neighborhood Summit for Equity. Perhaps some of you helped organize it, attended it, or participated in it. And if so, thank you. The intention of that event was to create an inclusive and educational space around the uncomfortable topic of race and equity in our community. I think we succeeded. However, we knew that the success of one weekend would amount to nothing if we were not willing to build on what we had learned and apply it to our daily lives since, and especially in heightened times like these. The truth is that the hard work of educating ourselves as white people about our history and how it relates to the ongoing injustices we see today is not someone else's job. Trotting through the muck and discomfort to reach understanding deeply the implications of white privilege White fragility and the systemic racism built on white supremacy is not someone else's job. Recognizing well enough to know what a good ally is and isn't, and how and when to be one, isn't someone else's job. Creating spaces of inclusion to amplify the voices of the marginalized, and above all, listening to those voices is not someone else's job. It is not someone else's job to dismantle white supremacy. Friends, it is your job and it is my job to do these things. It begins within each of us. If we want to make it better, we need to own it first. Please take a moment to read the quote on the screen by Brian Stevenson. In order to have reconciliation in this country, we white people need to know and own the truth of our past and how it impacts our present situation and the present situation of our Black and brown brothers and sisters. And then we need to act from that truth.
Today, I am ashamed. I'm ashamed of America's history of racism. I'm ashamed to see the American president encourage racism. However, I'm also hopeful that many Americans are also ashamed and want systemic change.
You know, politicians love to wrap themselves in the Constitution. They declare that we must defend it, that we must uphold the rule of law. All elected officials, public servants, members of the military, they all take a solemn oath to defend not the president, not the Congress, the Constitution, the document written 233 years ago. That is, until it gets in their way and becomes inconvenient. On Monday, the president shredded the First Amendment for an even intended photo op. He caused police officers and National Guard troops to attack peaceful demonstrators with tear gas, rubber bullets, batons, and shields. He made the job of the DC police harder. In short, the President Trump undermined the rule of law for a publicity stunt. He used a church and a Bible as props. He did not offer a single word of condolence to grieving families, nor did he seek to unify the country or bring peace. Within hours, his staff produced and released a triumphant video of his walk, complete with orchestral accompaniment. Leni Riefenstahl would have been proud. It was a shameless stunt from an egomaniacal president. He abandoned his oath of office and caused other members of his administration and public servants to compromise theirs. He undermined the law and order by fomenting chaos and confusion. I am urging all elected officials of every political party to immediately denounce this behavior. The president has displayed a wanton regard for the principles upon which our country was founded.
My heart goes out to the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all those who have lost loved ones due to police violence. Many in the Prescott community know us by our protests. What they don't realize is those protests and rallies are to raise public consciousness and that we spend uncounted hours writing to our legislative representatives in both the US and Arizona Senate and House. We write letters, postcards, phone, use ResistBot, and the request to speak system. As an early example, during the summer of 2017, we led the indivisible groups in Arizona by having a die-in, to protest Trump Care, and we had other public actions. At the same time, we signed up people for Obamacare during the short open enrollment period. And we had a letter writing campaign addressed to Senator John McCain. When he was hospitalized, we sent him and his family cards with good wishes. I was living in LA 55 years ago when the Watts riots took place. At that time, a commission identified the root causes of the unrest: high unemployment, poor schools, and inferior living conditions. Recommendations for addressing these problems included emergency literacy and preschool programs, improved police community ties, increased low-income housing, more job training projects, upgraded healthcare services, and more efficient public transportation. Most of those recommendations were never implemented. And that's 55 years ago. Black and brown lives mattered then, and they matter today. We all know that. We had our first racial equity action and training this past September. We plan on following it up with more action, continuing to work with the community at large and through our city officials. It is so easy to react and then we forget the issue, but it's more important that we be proactive, again leading the way for our community. The city of Prescott and the town of Prescott Valley offer avenues where we can make change by applying for advisory positions, show up at town halls, write to our town officials, and give our feedback. We know the power we hold, and we can make a difference in many lives. Prescott Indivisible will continue to bring people together, gather in person when that is possible, but until then, we will work on finding other paths for resistance and advocate for change.
These killings of unarmed Black Americans. My original intent was to create a list of all the unarmed Black Americans killed by the police since 2000. I quickly realized my search would be too lengthy to complete by meeting time. In 2015 alone, the police killed at least 104 unarmed Black Americans. The list of names I read are the better known killings. The list is a fraction of the dreams ended, the hope shattered, the tears shed, the so many lives lost. 1999, New York, Amadou Diallo. 2005, New Orleans, Ronald Madison and James Brissett. 2006, New York, Sean Bell. 2009, Oakland, California, Oscar Grant. 2011, Fullerton, California, Kelly Thomas. 2014, New York, Eric Gardner. 2015, North Charleston, South Carolina, Walter Scott. 2015, Freddie Gray. 2015, Chicago, Laqueen McDonald. 2016, Falcon Heights, Minnesota, Fidelio Castillo. 2016, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Terrence Krushner. 2018, Pittsburgh, Antoine Rose II. 2018, Arlington, Texas, Sean Terry. 2019, Louisville, Brenda Taylor. 2020, Minneapolis, Minnesota, George Floyd. Presente.
Okay. In our group, we had two people that had never been to a Prescott Indivisible, and they shed a lot of light that, they had emotion, they had a feeling that they wanted to step out, and they were really happy that they found this group. Let's see, we also had others that shared their experience as far as taking part in the march and the rally. There was two other people that seemed very emotional. It was a time that we really bonded. I mean, it was something that this group can do so much for what's going on. Bill had a lot to say. And Odetta, I think that's her name, offered a different perspective because she has a totally different view than everybody else in this entire meeting. And other than that, I don't know, I wish they forced me to do this. So anyway, that's about it.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Marshall.
I'm speaking for them. I think to summarize it, everybody's really kind of distressed. We're trying to look for answers on how we can come together as a people in this country, and that, you know, Republicans are our friends and our neighbors, and there's got to be some meeting point at some time. And I think that would be the gist of our conversation, at least what we were able to get through in about 3 or 4 minutes before it.
Right.
In our group, people are upset. One of our members took her extreme upset and anger and wrote about it and is planning to submit that to the Courier. Everyone was pretty devastated by what's going on. One of our members was extremely concerned about the looting and what all that might mean. There was fear expressed. A couple of us spoke about the importance of beginning to recognize our white privilege, and some of us shared about conversations they had with a young Black man living in Prescott, where he shared about experiences that he's had that as a white person we would never experience. Some specific examples like being stopped by the police when he's riding his bicycle. So much so that he stopped riding his bicycle and started walking, and then he was hassled by white supremacists in this town. So we have a long way to go here, and we also think it's really important that we each stand up for our truth, that we be leaders in our own lives and speak up fearlessly for those who might otherwise be marginalized, and that we do our best to learn what white privilege means.
So I think we all agreed, they appointed me, so I took notes, but I think we all agreed that it was a very difficult weekend. And I felt like in the last few days, I've been able to move forward, but I also had the advantage of being on a 5-day webinar over the weekend with 50 to 100 therapists from all over the world for 6 or 7 hours a day. So I'm ready to move forward. They were amazing to hear. Others also expressed the awfulness and the possibility that we are now at a tipping point, that we have reached a tipping point, and that I would see that as meaning a good thing. Again, it's a depressive time, and we've been through this time before. I think it was mentioned that it's kind of like a loop, and of course our so-called leader does need to be removed. Watching the news was one way of surviving the weekend, I think, in this chaos, and figuring out how the justice that this person is working on in another area, how he might be more able to engage with and for those that are marginalized. And if this person could write a poem with all these words, I'm sure they would, but that there needs to be truth before reconciliation.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan is next with group number 7.
Okay. I think that we've shared a lot of solidarity around our feelings, and I'm seeing this in the group as a whole, and I'm seeing, and it actually, I think we talked a bit about feeling hopeful in that we are on the same page with feeling very strong about it, feeling strong feelings. And Jen said to feel is to heal. And I think, actually, I don't know. Jen is actually the co-leader of this group. So Jen, do you have something? Can you unmute yourself? Do you have
Yes,
anything
sir.
to add?
Yes. So I believe that we started in sadness. I spoke first and I was crying, and I think we all shared the evolution of feeling of hopelessness. And I imagine that we ended in laughter because we had some technical difficulties, which I feel like is a true representation of what we're experiencing as a collective right now, which is that I'm not really sure what's going on, but back to you, Jonathan.
Okay, well, I think that really sums it up completely. So, thank you, everybody.
Hey, thank you.
It means a lot that we're all here together. It means a lot to me.
Okay, and then Cindy Wagner is group number 8.
Well, things that we expressed we were feeling was anger and also fear. And we discussed some ways we thought this situation could be improved, aside from prayer, and also go to the polls and vote, to educate the police on having more empathy. Tom had indicated that when South Africa was having their apartheid problems, that they tried to resolve it with Truth and
Reconciliation Commission.
Yeah, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That was about it.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody. Before I start, you mentioned the mayor a couple of times. I want to read something that the mayor wanted me to share with all of you. He's also sharing it on his video. He does videos twice a week for, basically since COVID started, but I'm just going to turn over here and read this. So he wants to thank all of our citizens, and that's all of you as well. On Tuesday, there was a peaceful demonstration. There were several hundred people gathered, many with varied opinions, but all remained calm and respectful. I will say this again. We stand with the governor and all of our leaders when we say the death of George Floyd was a tragic and abhorrent event. We are prepared to listen to those who seek to have a civil dialogue to ensure that it never happens again. He also wanted to take a minute to talk about the social media chatter that was going on that day. Indeed, as Mavis indicated, we'd been speaking with the organizers for several days. Very, very nice people with great intentions. And we, the city and the police department, were very confident that they had taken all measures and worked with us directly to make sure that this would remain peaceful. And indeed it did. Unfortunately, social media has a way of dispelling a lot of untruths. And there was a lot of stuff flying around that there were buses coming up here and there was going to be a lot of bad stuff happening. And the mayor was really disappointed with that because indeed, as we all saw, this was a very peaceful demonstration, and we are very proud of our community for putting that up. I know that Prescott Indivisible was not directly responsible for this, but anything that you did to help them, the organizers were pretty inexperienced, but they put on a good event, and so we want to thank you for any role that you played in helping them and counseling them for that. I also wanted to let you know, if you don't know, there is another event planned, very similar type of an event. And again, they've reached out to us. That's scheduled for Sunday, June 7th. It's called the March for Justice. And the folks that are organizing that, to me and to the city manager, they portray themselves as parents with children of different ages who are feeling angry and confused. And they want to put on an event that will help their children come together and have a way to express their grief. And that is going to be on Sunday, June 7th at 2:30. And we have a similar level of coordination with them. So we're looking forward to another peaceful event where people have a chance to express how they feel. So just wanted to share that information with you.
Is that on the courthouse square?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. They have shared it. The other event was shared on Facebook. Originally, it was on a private group. This group, I think, is actually going to open it up, so you should be able to see. It's called the March for Justice. So on Facebook, we wanted to make you aware of that. But I wanted to just go back a little, and I shared a little bit of this with Mavis. First of all, I'm here 3.5 years from Michigan. I grew up in the Detroit area. My first job out of college was in a very underprivileged neighborhood working for a Catholic hospital, and I was in charge of going out to the schools and working with the pastors and the faith-based community there to talk about, at that time, health and those types of things. But I understand completely the the need for dialogue and communication with our at-risk communities. When I came to Prescott, I came here for many reasons. I have family in Arizona. I definitely saw a different community than the one I left in a lot of ways. But I've been, because of the job that I do, I've had a chance to meet folks like yourselves and see the work that's being done. I think that the mayor is very committed. He's been in office for a couple of years. He's very committed to the city participating on a more full basis in these discussions. And the last time that I was part of discussions like this, and actually the last time I reached out to Prescott Indivisible was in January of 2019 after David Stringer's unfortunate remarks, and the city council, the mayor led this, the city council to, to make a proclamation, basically stating that that was reprehensible. And so we had a lot of conversations. Mayor attended at least one town hall meeting that I know about. In person, we were able to do that back then. So, that was kind of how we started things. From that point, the mayor asked me to reach out to some folks in the community, and one person that came forward was Lula Cooper. Those of you that have been here more than 20 years might know that Lula's husband, Dick, was to this day the only African-American council member on Prescott City Council. Dick was a very distinguished executive at DuPont Corporation before they moved here, and he had many patents and was really a remarkable man. Lula herself in her own right, Lula was in Delaware at the time of many of the civil rights actions in the mid-60s, and Lula herself attended sit-ins and really has a deep history with civil rights movement. So after meeting Lula, and the mayor appointed her his special advisor on diversity. And she has been able to kind of give us some ideas and direction from her standpoint. One of the things that she said is we need to help our young people sort of understand what goes on in the city. There's a lot of fear around the city, what we do with the government and the police department, of course. So what we did is we put together a student internship program for at-risk students. We worked with Kendra Hobson, who's with Yavapai County Schools. She's also on the MLK committee, or was at the time, and also the folks at PUSD. And we got this wonderful internship going for 2 students. And midway through the semester, COVID happened. So we weren't able to finalize that, but we're committed to continuing that. But I think the reason why I'm here today is to say that we can always do better, and we have to do better. And we see that when things like this come up. And I'm here to listen, really, and to take in thoughts that you have for how the city and our police department can interact with you. And to that end, I wanted to let you know I met with Chief Deborah Black today, and she is very much interested in learning and hearing what the concerns are from this community about her police force. And in the coming week or so, we're going to help her gather that information from the citizens of Prescott, yourselves and everyone, to learn what people are thinking about the Prescott Police Department, so that she can formulate and they can formulate some changes and some ways to better what they're doing. So that's some of the things that we're looking at right now.
The sample postcard mailing to 1,000 independents went out about 2 weeks ago. Our message encouraged the recipients to sign up for Pebble, the permanent early voting list, and invited them to take a survey regarding their issues, as Jane said, on the VVP website. The response to the survey thus far has been a little slow. The latter part of next week, volunteers will be following up with phone calls to those recipients. We're moving forward with the next mailing of an additional 1,000 postcards in a couple of weeks. We'll be using only one design, specifically directing voters to the VVP website in hopes that it will generate more traffic to the site.
Okay, thank you so much, Cheryl. So we're going to move right along to Louise Clara, who's going to talk about making masks, and she's the new volunteer coordinator. Okay, Louise.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. In the month of May, masks that were made by Candy Atkinson, myself, and some by Rita Day brought in $1,100.
Amazing.
We've kind of slowed down, so we're hoping that it picks up a little bit, but we're pretty happy actually with the monies that we brought in because we have a use for them.
That's amazing. You and Candy have paid for the stamps for a bunch of those postcard mailings, and I just absolutely appreciate you guys a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Maria wants to talk about the mask effort for the nations.
Right. Thank you very much, Louise. That's a tremendous effort. The Democratic Women of the Prescott area and Prescott Indivisible are helping the members of the sovereign nations. Since May 19th, we have received donations of 1,237 masks. We also received another 30 face shields, and we've made 3 trips over to Pine Top to deliver the donations. And everybody that has participated, I thank you. It's just been amazing. Every day we get another little donation of masks, so it keeps my husband busy. He's the official counter. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And finally, the last item on the agenda is Barbara Jacobson. Are you on?
I'm here. Yeah. Wait a minute.
Do you have video?
Yeah, I do. Unless I lost it. Oh, there it went. I'm back.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try it again. Let me spotlight your video.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. I had to plug in, so I'm down here. But I just wanted to mention to people, if you are not getting Save the Dells MailChimp, please go to savethedells.org and sign up. A really good one went out yesterday. It explains step by step what the city is doing next week and what y'all need to do to help. So it would be important to go on that website, make sure you get the MailChimp. We're going to send out a reminder. The AED has put in a letter of intent. The city will have a session on it from 1 to probably 3 next Tuesday. They are having 50 people in 3 different locations. I think it's Centennial. You can read it all on there. Centennial, the downstairs room, the upstairs room. I will not go inside, but I will, a few of us will be outside to answer a few questions if you have anything, when you're coming in. Basically, we want to let them know that we're still a force, we're still interested. The letter of intent that AED is putting in, because Save the Dells has been in a lot of negotiations, is supported by Save the Dells. There are some glitches. There is, it's not perfect. It's maybe 95% good. So if you go on the website, you're going to see a map kind of like this. And it gives you explains to you some of the issues we have, about 3 issues with, like digging up the archaeological sites, things like that. So we'd like to make comments, or have you all make comments. There's a link you can make comments, but you can also email the city council members. This is in prep for planning and zoning later. And again, at 3 o'clock, they'll vote on, or thereabouts, the letter of intent, whether they're accepting it or not. I imagine they're going to accept it. It's not a set in stone. This is the plan. So that's why we want comments to go to the city ongoing about, hey, can you tweak this part here a little bit? And we want to let them know we're still alive and well and paying attention. And I wish they were doing it out in the open in Mile High Field, but they're not. So you will have the opportunity to stream it, watch, ask questions, although the question askers online will be the last people to get to have their 2-minute comment. So whether you get to that or not, make sure you put something in writing and let them know that you're still caring, you're keeping track, and you'd like a few more little bits of property as possible. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Barbara, for the update on Save the Dells. That's such a valuable program. And then that's it.